Good day, everybody. Welcome to the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. This is Draft Takes. I'm Derek Gunn. It is presented by IBEW Local 98, Mark Lynch, Business Manager. Hey, just want to give a shout out to the thousands and the hundreds of thousands of people who have consumed our draft coverage since Thursday. Hey, keep smashing the like button. Keep coming here as we give you draft coverage you are not going to get anywhere else. Now, of course, the Eagles already have 4 new players in the fold, and we're going to start by recapping their first pick of the 2022 draft. And for that one, I brought in a longtime friend, colleague, and one of my favorite antagonists. He is NBC Sports Philadelphia Eagles beat writer Dave Zangaro. Dave, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Gunner. How are you?
Good, man. So let's go back to night one and hone in on that first draft pick. The big D tackle, Jordan Davis from Georgia. Every time we try to analyze what Howie is going to do, we come to find that we really don't know what Howie is going to do. So the first question I have to ask you is, how shocked were you that out of all the positions the Eagles needed, they decided to go with a mobile refrigerator with their first pick?
Honestly, I wasn't that surprised. You can argue that there were other positions they need more, and certainly that's a fair argument. I mean, they have some pretty glaring holes in their secondary right now that could use an edge rusher. So we know all that, but I think we know that Howie gets attracted to special players, and the Jordan Davis thing is like there's no one like him. You know, it's kind of like how we talked about Kyle Pitts last year coming out. It's like, who do you even compare him to because he's such a special player? I mean, to me, Jordan Davis fits that even more than Pitts did a year ago. I mean, no one at 340 pounds should be running the 4.78. I mean, that shouldn't be physically possible, and this guy can do it. And if you look at it as, all right, they drafted a run-stuffing defensive tackle and they traded up, and it was a significant trade up to move up 2 spots to get him, you can say, well, that's clearly not worth it. But they're banking on him being more than that. And some of it's a projection. I get that. But you have to remember, it's not sometimes we talk about, a player has a projection. Like Trayvon Walker, you're projecting him because he didn't do it at college. And the same thing with Jordan Davis. You're projecting these Georgia kids because they had such limited roles on that defense because it was so good. I mean, they could have them say, all right, Jordan, eat double teams, stuff the run. We'll get you out of there on 3rd down. And that's what they did. He only played 25 snaps a game last year. So on one hand, you're like, all right, can he do more at the next level? And you have to try to figure out if he can. And then you look at his athleticism and you think, yeah, I think he can. There's some projection there, but it's not boom or bust. I'd be completely shocked if Jordan Davis ends up being a bust in the NFL, if he can't play. I mean, to me, his floor is an elite level run stuffer. Yep. The only thing we're projecting is his pass rush ability. How much can he give you above the run stuffing? So if you take a run stuffer at 13 overall, it's probably not a good value pick, but he's not going to be a bust. He's just not.
The thing I like about it, even though I thought they would go with another edge rusher or maybe even hone in on a corner, but we all knew that the premier so-called cornerback situation was a lot thinner this year than it had been in recent years, is the fact that even though he's a first-round pick, there's pressure on him to produce, but not as much pressure to step right in and be the man because you have 2 high-priced Pro Bowlers in front of him who are going to be great mentors from him when he does assume a more significant role.
Yeah, and the thing with that position is he's going to play. You can look at the 2nd-round pick and think, well, if everything goes well this year, Cam Jurgens isn't going to play, which is we're not talking about that pick, but that's the way you can look at that one. And if you're upset about that one, I understand it more because, if Kelsey's healthy, Jurgens is going to be sitting on the bench.
Sure.
But we know Jordan Davis is going to play. He's going to rotate in, and that's a pretty good rotation. And you have to remember, that's 4 deep now. They have Cox, Hargrave, Jordan Davis, and Milton Williams. I wonder if they don't start sliding Milton out a little bit more on the edge, just given his versatility. And now that you have Jordan Davis in there, I think that makes some sense. he's just a good player. And I think that if we look at the premier positions in the first round, I think the Eagles would have been in on them. I think they would have been in on one of the cornerbacks. I think they would have been in on one of the edge rushers. But the way they went off the board, it didn't really work. I mean, you had Stingley go really early, then you had Sauce go. And once you got past those two corners, the value wasn't there. The edge rushers, if Thibodeau would have had a real slide, I think that would have been in play. And that didn't happen. I mean, I think that the two players that would have been available in that range that they didn't get, now they traded up. So when they traded up, you thought it's probably Jordan Davis or it's Kyle Hamilton.
Right.
If they would have drafted Kyle Hamilton, I would have had no problems with it. I think he's going to be a really good player. But it gets back to the way they value positions. And if they had Jordan Davis and Kyle Hamilton close to each other, we know which way they're going to go. They've been very honest about that forever, and they traded up to get Jordan Davis. Now, would I have done it? I don't know. I like the pick, but they could have sat there at 15 and got Jermaine Johnson. You know, and you still would have had all these. So they're banking on Jordan Davis being a special kind of player. He has that ability. We'll see if he becomes that.
Do you think the price was too steep to get a player like Davis?
It was steep. You know, if you look at like the value chart, it was more than you had to. But look, if that's their guy, to me, you don't worry about giving up 5th round picks if you're going up to get a game changer. If you're going up to get a guy you think can be a cornerstone of your franchise, fine. You know, if you have to give up, what was it? Two of their 5th round picks and the 4, like, you do it. It's not ideal, especially in this draft, because they really did like the mid-round value in this draft class. You have to remember, so many kids stayed an extra year, and it wasn't the top guys who stayed. It was the players who really thought they could benefit from having an extra year in college. So this is day 3 is going to be a good day in this draft, and the undrafted class is going to be good. So they gave up pretty valuable picks to move up. But like I said, if you're getting a player you think is a cornerstone difference maker, the guy who's going to replace Fletcher Cox, you do it. And really, it's funny, their first 2 picks are going to replace all-time greats.
Yeah.
When you look at their Jordan Davis is going to replace Fletcher Cox, and Cam Jurgens is going to replace Jason Kelsey.
Do you think this is the beginning of the end for Fletcher Cox? He's in the final year of his deal. Hargrave is in the final year of his deal. One or both could be gone at the conclusion of the 2022 season.
Yeah, you know, I think it still makes sense to extend Javon Hargrave. He's really good. He's a better player than Fletch right now. He's younger than Fletch, and I bringing Fletcher back for $14 million is a lot.
Yeah, it is.
You know, that's not. You know, that's a lot of money for a guy who, let's be honest, wasn't that good last year. He was still an above average defensive tackle. He can still really do a lot of good things, but he wasn't what he once was. So we'll see. I mean, it might be overpaying Fletcher this year, and I'm okay with it in some ways, because you're getting still a very good player who is important in that building. And I get all that, but the writing seems to be on the wall here that this is probably going to be his last season, unless he wants to take a big discount next year and be a rotational player. Because if you have Hargrave back, and I want Jordan Davis to be a starter in year 2.
Yeah.
Ideally. And then you still have Milton Williams, who they're bullish on. So we know that they care about the position and they want to keep it stocked. But my guess will be this is Fletcher's last year here.
You guys had a chance to talk to Jordan Davis by way of a conference call. Coming away, give me some of your impressions of him. I know it's only the initial introduction, but, you know, he looks like this big, happy-go-lucky guy. But give me your impressions of him.
Yeah, he has a little mean streak on the field, though. Yeah, he's a giant, by the way. He came in for his press conference on Friday. He's a mountain. I mean, he's enormous, and we're around big people quite a bit. He stands out among that crowd. I'm looking forward to seeing training camp and seeing him next to some of these other players. That's when you get a real good sense of it. Seeing him next to Jordan Mailata, who's taller, but he's a beefy dude, Jordan Davis. My initial reactions on Thursday night, it was cool. He was a little. You could tell his head was spinning. He was excited. He thought he was going to end up in Baltimore, just because they had the pick before the Eagles, and the Eagles knew that. They traded ahead of him. And once the Eagles made the trade, he knew he was going to Philly. He had only had 3 visits. It was Baltimore, Philly, and Dallas, and he figured whichever one of those teams got higher in the draft would take him, and that ended up being true. We didn't get a ton from him right after he got drafted, just because he was so
overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed, and he was like stumbling over his words. He couldn't get anything out, which is actually kind of cool to see, because it's as long as I've been doing this and you've been doing it longer, it's still really cool to see kids get drafted and have that experience. The next day he got into town, and we were able to learn a little bit about him. I asked him some of the biggest lessons he'd take from Georgia, and one of the first things he said was knowing what it takes to be a champion. And I don't think and how he said it's not a coincidence that in the last 3 years they've taken 5 players from SEC schools who have won national championships. We're getting further away from the Super Bowl, and there are less and less of those guys who remember what it took to get there. So I know it's not an exact correlation. I know it's not the same exact thing, but it takes a lot to win a championship in college too. So you have Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, Landon Dickerson, Jordan Davis, and Nakobe Dean, all with championship rings. And that's not a coincidence.
We talked about Howie learning his lessons. We had you on our JAKIB Media YouTube show, Sports Take, with myself, Rob Ellis, and Barrett Brooks a few days ago. And we talked about Howie last year dipping into the premier college conference in all of football to take his first pick. I tell you what, he goes right back at it again. So maybe Howie finally sees the light that if you want to pursue championships, you have to pursue championship pedigree players who knows what it takes to get to that ultimate level. Yeah,
and it's not a bad idea. Like we're obviously it's a byproduct as you get guys who understand how to win, but you're also getting just very good players.
Oh my goodness,
you're drafting players from these teams; they're very good, and that's not. I don't want to oversimplify it by just saying draft players from the SEC.
Right,
that's oversimplifying it, and you could do that and be successful, but there's talent elsewhere.
Sure.
There is. I mean, there's talent in every conference. There's talent even in like Division II. Like there's talent out there. There's talent in the FCS. Like you can find it, and it's up to them to do it. But it is nice to see them go to the power conferences and draft players who are not just productive, but have that taste of winning. Obviously, the measurables have to match at a certain point too. You can't just draft a guy because he was on a good team. He has to be a good player and he has to fit what you do. But I think we're seeing a little bit of a shift, and that's a good thing.
Jordan Davis, one of the things that really jumped out at me was the fact that at the combine, this man at 340 pounds ran a 4.78, which was the fastest time for a man more than 300 pounds since 2006. If he can do that at 340 pounds, once he gets with the Eagles nutritionists and the training staff, do you think he could be even more effective, more explosive, quicker if he gets down to about 330-ish?
Yeah, and that's his goal. He wants to play in the 330s. He's about 345 right now. And the weight is something to keep an eye on. He has to keep that under control because you need him to not just be explosive, but you need him to have the endurance, the conditioning to stay on the field. You can't have a situation where an offense is looking at him thinking, let's gas him out. Let's go no huddle. Let's keep him on the field because he can't withstand that. That's not going to be good enough. He has to be at a level where he can play a series if they're doing that to him. You think back to a couple years ago, we saw him get exposed a little bit. He admitted that he needed to improve that, and he did. And I think them cutting down his snaps a little bit helped too. But you need him to play a lot in the NFL.
Yep.
Use a first-round pick on him. So it's about finding that sweet spot. He's going to be a big player, and he's going to be big and powerful, and he's going to eat double teams. And you just want to be able to get him to a weight and a conditioning level where you can utilize both his size and his physical explosiveness, and because he has that in him.
Right. Howie and Jonathan Gannon may have tipped their hand a little bit when they said that there's a possibility you could see 3 D tackles in the trenches, and you're talking about 3 powerful men who can move the pocket. You can slide them one way or the other, and you can still have your back guys, filling the gaps to pursue on the blitz, or to fill the gaps even more so on the runs. Can you let your imagination run? Which you could have either Fletcher, Hargraves, and Davis, and or Milton Williams, with a hand in the dirt at the same time?
Yeah, it really does open up a lot of possibilities. And we know Gannon last year really wanted to be multiple. He wanted to be able to go into every game and say, this is the defense this week because we're playing this offense and we think this is the best way to attack them. I think having a guy like Jordan Davis and having Hassan Reddick and having Nakobe Dean really gives him the ability to do that. I think he was playing with a short deck last year, to be frank. I don't think he had the players in the building that he needed to do what he wanted to do defensively. I think he does now. And it's going to be a proving ground for him a little bit because in the court of public opinion, he was not a very popular person here last year in this city, and he brought a lot of that on himself. I still think he's a pretty good coach. Okay. I don't think there are 3 teams in the NFL that wanted to interview him for a head coaching position because he's a dummy. Right. I think there's something there. And now we'll find out because he has the players to do that. He can run 3-man fronts. He can run 4-man fronts. He can use all these guys are kind of chess pieces. They can play Jordan Davis on the edge if they want to. They can slide Milton Williams inside. And they have a lot of different possibilities right now. And I'm really curious to see exactly how he implements all these guys.
If there was one knock on Jordan Davis, it was the fact that the word was he took plays off. He sometimes got lost in the shuffle, didn't play as hard every down as he should for a guy of his size. When you looked at him on film, did you come away with that indication?
I think part of it is the conditioning.
Okay.
Especially when you look 2 years ago. Especially when you're talking about a guy playing 25 plays. Yeah, you want him to go all out on every play. I think back to watching Milton Williams, and it was one of the things I really liked about Milton Williams coming out a couple years ago was that this dude was all over the field, whistled, play, snapped the whistle, never gave up on plays. And it's not like Jordan Davis was lazy. I don't want to, it's I thought the effort was there. Definitely effort was there. He has tough duty in that defense. He's got 2-3 guys on him at all times. Sometimes it looks easy because you're like, they're not even moving. They're moving. It's just he's got 2 other guys moving against him. It's sometimes you watch a play and you forget that there's a car crash going on right there, and he's got 2 cars on one, and it's not an easy deal. It can gas you out, and he's going to do that here. I mean, if nothing else, they didn't draft him 13 overall to eat double teams. They didn't. That's not good enough, but he's going to get double teams, and it's going to free people up. I think back a few years ago, the Haloti Ngata year, what was left of Haloti Ngata when he played here, and we agree he didn't really have much tread left on the tires. Even he that year got double teamed a lot. When you have a massive human being like that, you have to send bodies their way. The idea here is you have a massive body who can do everything. He can be explosive. He can get upfield, and he needs some refinement too. You see this guy on a national championship team and you think, and it's funny, you look, I'm off on a tangent here, but you look at that Georgia team, right?
Right.
And you say, if you were just like, watch this team, who were the best players on that defense? You'd probably pick out Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean, right? They're making plays out there.
Wow.
And it's going to be fun to watch those two implemented now in this defense. But with Davis, he has some refinement to go. He's not a finished product.
Right.
And that's exciting. And we'll see how Tracy Rocker, the defensive line coach, back for a second season, which is like rare for the Eagles. That wasn't the last time they had a defensive line coach for 2 seasons in a row.
That's right.
It's going to take a lot. And it's going to fall on him, and it's going to fall on Jeremiah Washburn, who is the assistant D-line coach. And it's going to fall on Fletcher and Javon Hargrave to get this guy to be a finished product, because there's still room to grow. And I think that's what's scary in some ways, because you're projecting, but it's also really exciting because he's already the best defensive player in the nation, and he has a lot of room to grow.
He is Dave Zangaro, NBC Sports, Philadelphia. Follow him on all the social media platforms. He is one of the best in his region in terms of covering the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm happy. I may not say this again publicly, Dave, so listen closely. I'm happy to call him a colleague and, more importantly, a friend. Until next time. All right. This has been the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. This is Draft Takes. I'm Derek Gunn. It's presented by IBEW Local 98. Mark Lynch, your business manager. Hey, don't forget to join us each and every day, Monday through Friday, on Sports Take from noon to 3 p.m. with Rob Ellis, Barrett Brooks, and myself as we cover all the sports in the tri-state region. Also, hey, don't forget to make your summer summer plans right now at Ocean Casino Resort, the exclusive provider of all JAKIB Media content. Go for the beach, go for the win. This is Draft Takes, presented by IBEW Local 98. Mark Lynch, business manager. For my man, Dave Zangaro, I'm Derek Gunn. Thanks for watching.